Why did my Goldilocks zone move? First, what is the Goldilocks zone? Why would that change on anybody? Why would it move? But because mine did, I was able to acquire my next rental property when I was looking. And in this video, I'm going to go over what happened to my Goldilocks zone. I'm also going to record this because this is going to be a standalone video, and I'm giving it that 30 seconds to let everybody that gets notifications get the notification that this video is happening. So thanks for hanging out with me on a Tuesday. This is when the videos generally last as long as the questions do. Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. What is a Goldilocks zone? What changed with mine, and why did it let me get my next rental property? That is going to be what this video is about. First, is there anybody who doesn't know who Goldilocks is? It's not just a Gen X book thing, right? Like those books still happen. Parents still open books and read them to their kids. Is that a thing? So the story of Goldilocks is this burglar who breaks into the house of these three bears and then steals the porridge from these poor bears and isn't happy with I believe it's the temperature of the first porridge that she's stealing. Too hot, next one's too cold, third one's just right. So the porridge that was just right is what Goldilocks was looking for. Then she goes to bed. One bed's too hard, one bed's too soft, one bed's just right. And then my version of the story, the bears show up and they eat her for dinner. But why would I use the Goldilocks zone when referencing how I invest in real estate? One, it's how I believe astrophysicists refer to the zone of the distance of a planet from the sun that can support life. So when we're looking for exoplanets and other solar systems with the new tech, the new telescopes and space things we've got going on where we can look far and see better, they're looking at not too close to the sun to burn everything and not too far from the sun to freeze everything. They call it the Goldilocks zone. There's this range that is the perfect distance for planets to possibly have life like Earth does. So in real estate, I'm going to cover two Goldilocks zones of mine. One that hasn't changed, so you can get the concept of how I relate it to real estate. And then one that is definitely changed in the last few years. And I have talked about this in longer videos, but I wanted to talk about this as the intro to this one live stream that I'll release as a separate video so that people can understand you have Goldilocks zones and you have to understand when you want to change your Goldilocks zone. The first one will be in property type, right? There's very expensive, very fancy properties that can have everything from a gated community to a doorman to high-end furniture to high-end appliances to 24-foot doors, vaulted ceilings. Class A is what they call this, very expensive properties. I don't want to own any of those. I wouldn't own any of those even if I found a good deal on one. Then you have Class B, which is still expensive, still nice, still higher end, probably the better school district, probably what some people would call McMansions or maybe nice tract homes, but nicer areas where there's not a lot of crime, where there's a lot of opportunities. I don't want to own those either. Those actually, well, would be kind of bad to own. And then you have, so that's A and B, and then you have D. Class D is this zone of properties. So you have Class A zone, Class B zone, Class D zone. The D zone is what people call war zone, where cops can't go by themselves, where you wouldn't feel safe going to collect rent or talk to a tenant, and you wouldn't feel good or sleep well at night if you sent a handyman to that zone or that area because it wasn't safe. Properties are cheap. 1% rule can often be found in the war zones, but the tenant turnover, the issues, and the risks that you take there, I wouldn't want to own there. I'm I'm more likely to own in a war zone than a Class A zone, but I don't want to own there either. And then you have my Goldilocks zone of property types. This is Class C. This is, I'm in a high cost of living area, so some of these properties are still expensive, but they're not the higher end. They don't have fancy appliances. They don't have gated communities. They don't have doormen. They're not in the best school districts. I specifically don't want to own in good school districts. This is where the working class lives. This is where I raised my kids. I wanted them in public schools. I wanted them to have to actually interact with other humans and become well-developed people that know when things are about to go sideways, which happens in public schools. I want Class C properties for a very specific reason. And it's not because I can consistently find tenants, right? I have the same challenges with Class C. Sometimes tenant turnover might take a few weeks or maybe a month, right? And I have to do a rent study. I have to figure out where my rents are at. I have to make sure my listings reach the right market. They're on the right platform for the area. I have the photos in the right order, right? The most attractive aspect of the property. Then I do the listing isn't just, here's the square footage and the age, because that's what owners think of. Tenants don't think of any of that. They think, what's the distance commuting to the work area, what colleges are in the area, what hospitals in the area. You can list all these things. I have to do all that too with Class C. So it's not that it gets easier to find tenants, but the reason I prefer Class C, there's two reasons. The first, if you own a Class A or a Class B property and your tenants go through a divorce, you're probably going to lose both of them, right? Not everybody monkey branches and has the next person move in already ready to pay the other half of the bills that they need. So a divorce means tenant turnover. If somebody loses their job with Class A or B properties, it's really hard to replace a $150,000 or $200,000 a year job when all of IT lays off, or when Boeing moves out of an area and everybody gets laid off. But with Class C, I've had tenants make $20, $25 an hour, rent's $1,500, $1,800 a month, whatever it was. They lose their job. Unemployment's enough to cover their bills while they find another job. It's kind of easy to replace a $40,000 or $50,000 a year job. Even a cop can become a truck driver. Truck driver can work in dispatch or move into the warehouse, right? There's those types of working class jobs are easier to replace. So I want my properties in that line. And then let's think beyond that to tenant issues of divorce or losing their job. But what about a recession or a depression? Class C tenants will rarely ever move to a Class D war zone to save money. Rents aren't actually that different, since Section 8 kind of sets the low bar on what rents can be. But Class B and Class A tenants will save money by opting into, maybe the school district doesn't matter so much when one of the parents can't work. Or when you go through the divorce, where do those A or B tenants go that weren't monkey branching and had somebody ready to line up and move in with them? Not that that's happened, and I'm not bitter, but it's easier in a recession or a depression to own Class C properties because there's increased demand on that zone of properties. And that's not a zone like there's an area, but it's a type of property that you would consider Class C. And that's different for each area. So you have to study your area and figure out what is Class A, B, or D to know what to avoid. You might want Class B. I know some people do. They want to have that pride of ownership. What I want is financial stability that lets me not become a financial burden to my kids when I stopped working and never have to work again. I don't want pride of ownership. I don't even like owning rentals. They're a hassle. They're a pain in the butt. Like I've had, what is this, November? I think I've had two phone calls in the last month about my rentals. One was I had an actual water break that was caused by a plumber going to deal with a septic issue, which was the other phone call that I got. So I've had two phone calls in a month, and that's way too much. I can't handle it. I should just quit. So that's the Goldilocks zone that hasn't changed. It's been tested. I buy Class C properties. We've been through economic boons. We've been through a pandemic. We've been through an eviction moratorium. We've been through a stock market crash. We've been through several things in the last decade. And I haven't had a later missing rent payment in a decade. Literally 10 years since my first tenant is the only one I've ever had issues with. So understand your zones makes it easier for you to find your next target property or your next target investment. But here's the Goldilocks zone that changed. It shifted. So for the first decade of my investing, that hunting for real estate while working, while being a single parent with three kids, while trying to have a life, I wanted to make my investing easy. So all my properties are from the MLS, conventional lending, right? I've never done creative financing, seller financing. I've never, I've talked to some wholesalers, but they just think I'm stupid and they have a deal that's too high priced and they're too embarrassed to actually put it on the MLS, or they're looking for somebody like me. And just because I look stupid, they think I am. And believe me, nobody is as stupid as I look. So I haven't bought any wholesale deals. No mailers, no driving for dollars, none of the creative things that you can do. I was working full time at very limited time. So I just had my deals coming from the MLS. Multiple agents with searches set up. And yeah, the NAR settlement might have changed that to where I'll probably only have one agent going forward with searches. But I've got a good one. So it's, hunt through till you find one. I had the Goldilocks zone of this area, this location, and I wanted to make offers fast, right? And what speed was my friend. And I wanted to get an offer, and it didn't mean I wanted them to accept my offer. I wanted to get on the seller's radar before they realized how many offers they were going to get, because since like 2013 and on, as prices kept going up and there was a lot of competition and more people figured out small multifamily actually made money. Half my portfolio was acquired by getting an offer, being told it was not accepted because they got a better offer. And then I follow up with, awesome, congratulations. If that deal falls through, my offer still stands. Because what a lot of people were doing for the last 10 years was making a higher list price or higher offer and then beating the seller up in negotiations using the inspection report and anything else they can find, and just trying to get the price down as much as possible or get as many concessions as possible. And I've had sellers go, this buyer's a pain in the butt. Let me go back to that guy that made an offer, said it's still good, even though he got outbid, and I'll just sell it to him. Now, I knew I was in second position and they'd already gone through that, so I wasn't too aggressive on my negotiations, but they already had the sunk cost theory of accepting my offer, communicating with me a couple of times. Got half my portfolio that way in a specific area. But here's what shifted in 2020, and this is why my Goldilocks zone changed. I don't want to own in cities, like large cities, Tacoma, Seattle. It's where I live in the Pacific Northwest. So if I was in Texas, I wouldn't want to own in Houston, in Dallas. If I was in California, I wouldn't want to own in LA County. I wouldn't want to own in San Francisco. Kern County, sure. Fresno, sure. But not in the cities. I don't like the competition of massive apartment complexes that have to make concessions when things happen like they did in 2020, where people didn't want to live in the city and they became more rural. And the biggest shift that's ever happened in my half a century of life is remote work is more of an option now than it has ever been, ever, that I remember. Almost half the people, if you take out the fact that I ran a CDL school for the last 10 years before I retired, and so I know a lot of truck drivers, kind of hard to do that remotely. But if you look at all the other people that I know, half of them or more work from home. They have a remote job. And so if I know a lot of people and a lot of them work remotely, 56% of people are required to work in the office. Sounds like a lot. Sounds like a lot when you hear Amazon saying return to work, or Tesla saying to return to work, or Starbucks saying return to work. Even though those companies have a lot of advertisement, they represent a very small part of the workforce. 56% of our people are required to work in the office. And if you could do math, because 70% of people can't do math, and I'm in the other 55%. That means 44% of people can work remote jobs. And some are geo arbitrage, can go live in Thailand and work remotely full time. Like my friends Craig and Talitha, they plan on moving to Italy, and when maybe she works full time. Fine. But a lot of people have to go to the office once or twice a week. And what this did, and I'll pull up a map specifically in my area so I can actually have a visual representation. Where did my map go? Why did it do that? I mean, wait and make sure that it's showing the the map. Let me know in the chat if you can see. I'm not going to be able to see it. Why is that? Try one more time. I don't have a 10-year-old around here to help me with the tech. There we go. Okay. I specifically invested outside. I wouldn't own in King County, right? The larger the city, the less landlord friendly laws you have. And while I do like some tenant friendly rules, I don't want to own in the crazy King County. Some of that spread to Tacoma city limits. So I don't want to own there. So almost all of my properties are between these two counties, Pierce and Thurston County. Because with the I-5 corridor here, the base, most of the commuters from this is the work hub towards Seattle, most of the people would commute 35 minutes to an hour to be in this area that I own properties in. But what did remote work do? Remote work said I could draw a circle around the area that I own, another 30 minutes out. My Goldilocks zone, if I want commuters and enough economic drivers like Joint Base Lewis McChord here, the Port of Tacoma, the Port of Seattle, all of these, the Frederickson Boeing plant, all of these places where tenants can come from. But now you add remote work, and I started looking out here in Shelton, Bremerton, Port Orchard, and I started finding deals. Because here's what happened when remote work became an option to more people. Rents got pushed up because there are a few people like me who don't want to live in the city, who living in I think there's 16,000 people in the town that I live in, and that's too many. Only 15,000 too many, but still, it's too many. I don't want to live in the big cities. There's a lot of people who don't, but that's where a lot of the work is. And not everybody wants to commute. Even a lot of people wouldn't want to commute to the area that I used to invest in mostly. But with remote work and only having to drive to the office once or twice a week, you can actually do that, hour and a half even, if it's only once or twice a week, and then live where you want to. So rents have pushed up a little bit further out, and property prices haven't. Because the remote workers they have the same social media feeds that we do. They keep seeing things like Starbucks makes you come back to the office. Tesla, Amazon, return to work orders, right? Or lose your job. No, they're okay moving out and renting. And if they get called back to the office, they have to cancel a lease, they have to break a lease, they have to wait till the lease is over and then move back. But they don't want to buy because not everybody wants to be a landlord and own a property with tenants in it. So I found this Goldilocks zone of where I was investing has expanded out. Rents being pushed up and property prices not pushed up as much, right? They were increasing, but not as much, means it was easier for me to find properties that hit my cash on cash return on investment yield amount that I was looking for, or better, with plenty of demand for renters, still hunting in that Class C property type. Don't leave. I'm going to do an outro. This was a short video. My long live streams where I answer all the questions happen Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Pacific. And tell me, what are your Goldilocks zones for properties? What do you look for? What investments do you look for? Is it real estate? Is it stocks? Is it crypto? And has something changed in what you're looking for? And can you defend your position as to why you changed your Goldilocks zone? Howdy. I'm going to make a couple more of those because I've been finding I do intros that I want to be short videos and then I don't want to do it twice. But doing it and then recording it, I'm fine with that. The rest of this will be answering questions that show up in the chat. And we have a course call tonight at 6. So we have to end enough time before that to make sure that happens. Members only call this weekend, probably on Saturday. I think I'm going to do everyone who's in the binder course. I was able to send a message to today. I kind of figured that out. I think I'll do a message on later this week to let people know when the members only course call or member only call will be. So howdy, Dan. Good to see you here. See, you have a couple questions. Does the down payment you pay upon purchase for a rental count as an expense against rental income for taxes? It's a good question. So short answer, if that's what you're looking for, hopefully you're still here, Dan. Short answer is no, it doesn't. But the longer answer is your down payment is not an expense at all. Right? Right. Record that in the lizard brain. A down payment is not an expense at all. This is why it wouldn't be a tax write-off. And this one thought stopped me from investing for a decade, cost me 10 years of investing. My brother used to say over and over, I buy a property, right? He's retired with 10 paid off rentals. He's been on my channel a couple of times, and he used to say, before I owned rentals, I buy a rental property, and in 11 years, I get my money back. And I thought that was stupid. He's got it down to like 6 years now, right? He got his systems better over the years. But when he first started, he said, yeah, I buy a property in 11 years, I get my money back. How dumb is that? He had his money. He spent it to take 11 years to get it back. And that's not what he meant. That's what I inferred. Dan, when you buy a property, you don't spend the down payment. You move it. Let's say one of my duplexes I purchased in 2021, just under $400,000. I put $100,000 down, 25% down payment. So I had $100,000 or more in the bank, right? Because I had reserves, money for immediate repairs, and the down payment. I took the down payment from the bank and I moved it into the property. Wouldn't be a tax write-off because it's still there. It's still mine. I could sell the property, get my 100 grand back, right? It's appreciated so much now. I would have doubled my money, even including the cost of selling, the agent fees, the excise tax, the capital gains tax. I would have still doubled my money in 3 years. So how could that be a tax write-off? As soon as I realized when you buy an investment property, you are not spending money. Now, you do pay for things like an appraisal and an inspection, so you are spending some money there. So like for the pedantic people out there, yeah, there's an expense to buying stuff, but your down payment is not an expense. All you do is move the money. I purchased the place I'm in now all cash, right? I had $500,000 in the bank. I paid $400,000 for the place I'm in now. Just bought it all cash. I didn't spend that. It's still there. Burns to the ground. I got insurance. Uh, I could sell it. I could, now that I've got it fixed up and it's worth probably 7 or 800,000, I could do a cash out refinance or a cash out finance because it's not a refinance. I could take out a HELOC, right? I could sell this place, get more money than I have into it. This is one, the reason why it's not a tax write-off is because it's not an expense. Your money's still sitting there. It's still yours. And two, as soon as I understood that, I started buying properties as much as I could. It was really cool. You buy an asset, you're not spending money. You do have some expenses, right? But you're not spending the down payment. You're just putting it in a place where it now has a job making more money than you do, probably. It didn't take very many properties for me to make more money off of my down payments being in the properties than they were in the bank. Can you explain again the factors you considered to determine that duplexes were the best investment for you or your area? Thanks. So I spent a year, Dan, looking at single family houses. I had a very simple idea. I owned a house, right? In my divorces, I've been able to keep the kids in the house, never been good at keeping a girl around, and I totally understand why. It takes two people to mess things up. And I had a house that wasn't purchased as an investment. This was the white picket fence, raise the kids, right? Gonna own the house. So I understood how to buy a house. I understood I could, like, there was a first time buyer program to buy it. It didn't even cost me anything. I didn't even use my VA loan to buy it. It was better to use this first time buyer program at the time, sort of. And I thought I could repeat that, right? So I spent a year, I moved out of my house because the lenders told me if I had rental income on my tax returns, I'd be able to get around a debt to income ratio to buy the next property. So I moved into an apartment and started looking, and every house I looked at, my house didn't cash flow. That first year, one, I didn't know what I was doing, but two, I'd owned it for 10 years, right? I bought it 10 years before, and I didn't owe a lot on the mortgage, but rents really hadn't pushed up. Section 8 even hadn't pushed up. BAH for the base hadn't pushed up. So it really wasn't a good deal. And I looked around and I couldn't find anything that was even as bad as my house. And then I don't know if it was BiggerPockets, their blogs or their vlogs or whatever, where somebody was talking about you can buy up to 4 units. And it's the same type of lending, right? And it's okay. Well, I understood how to buy a house, right? Owner occupied, lower down payment, better interest rate, all that stuff made sense. And I found out from somebody that it worked up to 4 units. And I started looking around and I thought, in my area, and still in my area, houses and duplexes cost about the same, right? There's not much difference, right? My single family house, well, I guess duplexes have gone up now because there's a little bit more demand, I guess. But I can find duplexes for $400,000 or $500,000, and my single family house would sell for somewhere between $400,000 and $500,000. It's not much different, but neither are the rents. This is where the light came on, right? And I said flag with an L, flag. The flag went up, and I thought it's the same price, but almost twice the rent. So there might be like a $50 difference. I actually rent my house out for exactly the same as the same number of bedrooms in a duplex. So for me, it's the same, but for other people, there might be some flex there. Well, how does the math look? And not all the deals made money. Still, 80% of them would lose money, even though you can get almost twice the rent. That's how bad single family houses rent in Washington State. So I acquired the next three properties were duplexes, and all of them cash flowed. All of them got better than a 10% return. And then I got a fourplex and then a triplex. And I think the triplex is my best yield purchase. It's like, I want to say around 40% now, as far as cash on cash return is. That's not terrible. But I've owned it 4 years. 4 years this month. Nice. Celebration drink. It's also my biggest pain in the butt, where I've had more issues with it. I think it's the one now that's had two septic issues, water issue, and I had something else go out there. I've owned it 4 years, and I had to have the septic pumped. So I've had like 5 phone calls to that property. That's not acceptable. Although there are 3 units, kind of balances out. Old guy REI, howdy. And Dan, thank you for the questions. Those were great. Good afternoon from lovely Watsonville, California. Nice. Is there a Sherlock Holmes joke in there somewhere? Ninja vanished. Howdy. Bring on the best haircut in real estate. Oh, I covered the haircut today. I took a walk yesterday, and this is Washington. It was downpour rain, and I wore the hat, and it got soaking wet. So today I'm wearing it as it dries to make sure it holds form. So, but yes, best haircut. Jason and Tony, howdy. Howdy, y'all. The only reason I like Tuesdays. I like it. This tells me what day of the week it is. I actually look forward to some of these questions. You never know what you're going to learn based on a question somebody else asked. Rehab North Carolina houses. I think that's what NC stands for. Unless it's NC 17. You got good jokes coming. Howdy. Meowdy Dennis and John. Good evening from North Carolina. Good, I was right. Late start wealth. Dion, all of us Dionites. There you go. Freedom Works. Howdy. Naya. Howdy. Dividend Dave. Good to see you. All-nighter hider. Dividend Dave, we have a friend in common who leans very far to the left. So we need to be very sensitive to political comments. All-nighter hider. Good to see you. Great day, everyone. Just wrapping up work on this Taco Tuesday. Ooh, Taco Tuesday. I'm gonna walk to dinner tonight. I don't know where I'm gonna eat. It's probably raining because it's Washington. There is no R in Washington. Wealth building journey. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Good. So yeah, well, you're older, longer in the tooth though. Buzztune, Mikey, good to see you. Goldilocks is a star in movies I can't watch at work. That is very true. Porridge, runny oatmeal. It depends on how it's made, but very true. Sean, good afternoon. Howdy. We don't watch those kinds of movies, Dave. Frank, that makes you the outlier. That shouldn't be a super chat. There you go. Dividend Dave. Goldilocks is the star of movies I can't watch at work. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. I'm not sure how I missed that. Actually try to catch those first. If you ever have a question and I'm getting really far behind and you want it, that's how super chats jump here because that's how the comments show up. Usually shows up at the top. Wolf building journey, and he does it. There you go. Goldilocks and the threeplex. I like it. Starting to like World of Warcraft general chat in here. That is fairly accurate. If you want to start a war in World of Warcraft or any gaming thing, you have a math equation, you just put in your chat, starts a war every time. Josh, can a 1031 a long-term rental into a short-term rental and stay there part of the year? So every time a tax question comes up, the references go to the CPA, right? But I know you want to Google, you want to find out on YouTube, is it worth even pursuing? You can 1031 real estate into real estate. It doesn't have to be like, it could be storage to midterm rentals, right? It doesn't have to be like for like, means the asset class, not what you're doing with it. So that part of the question, yes. The staying there part of a year, I would confirm with a CPA because 1031 has all kinds of weird rules. I know it has to be for investment purposes, but you can have an investment property that you stay out part of the year. You can have investment properties that you house hack, right? So there are different ways of looking at it, but yeah. So first, yes, you can 1031 long-term to short-term, confirm with the CPA on if you could stay there part of the year, and then how much, how long, and what still qualifies it to be a uh, investment property and not a homestead. 1031s are tricky. Do your research. Dan, were any of your Section 8 home inspections particularly challenging? How did you work through it? Here's how I worked through it. And I don't want to ever name anybody by name, but Pierce, Pierce, County, Washington, can suck it. And I will never own a Section 8 property there. Thurston County, love it. Own them there all the time. Pierce County inspection was terrible. Communication was terrible. Their expectations were ridiculous. Thurston County, they worked with me. They were responsive. Inspector came to the house, found a few things. There was a door. And if they find something, this is very important, Dan, and I'm not saying this to you, I'm saying this in general. So if I'm ever going to say something sarcastic, it's not directed at a person, it's directed at a trope. If there's something wrong with your rentals, you should fix it, right? That wasn't at you, Dan. That was just, they inspected my place. I thought it was good. And they found a weather strip on one of the doors. A dog had chewed up. This is my one time I've had dog damage. Uh, the weather stripping had to be replaced. It was like $7. There was some damage to the trim that I had fixed already. Uh, Not me. I'm the lazy person. I did go stick the weather stripping in because that just clicks in. But the trim I had replaced by Handyman. It was like less than $200. I did the trim. I had the trim replaced. And disappointment in my grammar. And then I did that. Section 8 found that. And then behind the refrigerator, the Section 8 inspector found an electric plate was broken or not there. I forget what it was. It was something with it, but it was behind the fridge. I never looked there. She went out to her truck, this is Thurston County, Washington, to let you know why I have Section 8 tenants there. She had a box of all these different plates and she brought it in. She goes, well, let's find one. Let's put it in there. And she fixed it. And then there might have been something like an exterior light by a basketball court that didn't work. I didn't even know it was there. And so I had to fix that. And she's the one that kind of recommended in the beginning. She says, I don't have to schedule another appointment to come out here. But if you send me an email with a little video of these items being fixed, then I'll sign off on it. And it was like the next day I was approved with that unit. So yes, one county was great, one county was bad. Where it was bad, just don't work with that program. Like there's plenty of tenants that aren't Section 8. You can still use Section 8 rents for the binder strategy or for kind of helping you do a rent study or setting your rents. Like they're not the only data point that you use. But that's how I handled it. The person who has the power to walk away has the power. And I don't care how many times they've reached out to me, Pierce County, Washington, they can suck it. Like, done. I learned slow, but I do learn. I think the next thing I saw was Ninja Vanish. My chat moved, which I appreciate. That means Ninja Vanish playing catch up on chipmunk speed. Nice. And my computer is being silly. Why is it doing that? Tell me I need a new computer because I like to actually get new computers. My chat is not working. Hopefully the video is working. Credit card, recommend checking with a CPA or an EA. Yep, I totally agree. Wealth planning journey. Just downloaded TurboTax 2024 home and business setting up right now. Jason, yes, we can. You can see good. You can see the map good, but not the chat. Why did the chat freak out? What commute do people find acceptable? 45 minutes. I want to see what everybody said, if anybody answered. I've commuted. I don't know that I've often had a commute less than 30 minutes. I've had a commute up to an hour and a half. Was the most I did. I didn't like it. I'd say an hour or less is the most I would go for. Hey, Joey Toy course, members only course. Where can I find out more? So the course is at diontalk.com, and that's where there's a free, so there's no fee, no charge, no hidden thing. I put the whole thing in there. AJ Toy, there's the free binder course where you learn how to get your tenants to ask you to raise the rent, keeping happy tenants. They don't trash your place, they don't leave. Makes it easier to find cash flowing deals on the MLS. But you can also book an hour there or join the Financial Freedom for the Lazy Person course. That's what's every Tuesday for the month of November. We're getting together, 6 o'clock, jump on Zoom together. Members only is here on YouTube. You might not be able to see it on your phone if you're on a certain, I don't know if it's Apple or the other one, Android. And oh no, something went wrong. Displaying this website. Reload. Still streaming. That's not good. Okay. Looks like we're back. How can you kill that which has no life? Now it is a WoW chat. Okay. At least we're back. Tell me I need a new computer. And I was talking to AJ Toy. Members only, you find a join thing here on YouTube. We do at least two meetings a month where we jump on Zoom together and we go through the mental process of everything that happens when you look at a deal. We do talk about other things too, but we're mostly focused on learning the skill of how, when a deal comes in, Dave, I'll answer that in a bit. When a deal comes in, what do you mentally process? Right? Because we don't have time to spend 5 hours looking at every deal when I get like 60 deals from a agent in a week, right? And so we take about the 90 seconds, literally a minute and a half, that you were going to look at the emails as they come in, of the deals that look worth looking at. But it takes about 45 minutes to break down in those 90 seconds, what are you doing? Because part of it is math, right? We figure out, is the yield close to what I want? But that's just this much. Then we go through physical aspects of the area because we know our market. We've already picked, we've already learned the market, but is it in that area of your market that you don't want to own in? Or is there something about that area that would make you adjust your price? Possibly higher turnover because of something loud like a club or something. Physical aspects, plenty of sources of tenants, access to the freeway, parking. Then we go physical aspects of the property. What's going to help maintain tenants? Will it match your criteria of what the strategy you're trying to do? Is it going to look good for short term, midterm, long term? And we go through all that. It takes literally 45 minutes to go through what we think of in a minute and a half. That's the members only stuff. JNYC, is there anywhere in California that owning real estate is all over? Or is that whole state off the table? Nope. JNYC, I've actually talked several times why I prefer to invest in a blue state. Not in the insane parts, right? Stay out of King County in Washington, city of Tacoma in Washington, maybe Wenatchee in Washington, LA County in California, San Francisco, right? I wouldn't own in those places, but my brother has some in Kern County and Rosamond, California. I totally own there. My niece is buying in Fraser Park. I completely own there. All kinds of places in California that I would own and some that I wouldn't. But there's probably places I wouldn't own in a lot of states too. So yeah, no, California's not completely out, just parts of it. AJ Toy question: what book recommendations do you have? I have one rental, my old place, and I need to get up to speed quickly. So, I mean, there's kind of like the holy grail books that just don't change, right? As an investor, whether it's real estate or anything else, we should all read. Okay, here's the required reading, which um, military, law enforcement, required reading stuff. Stupid. But these are the books that I think people should go through. Richest Man in Babylon. Uh, the it's not the pharmacist, the alchemist. Uh, Think and Grow Rich. Like those three. Those are 100 years old plus, and they just They're going to last. They've passed the test of time. The two books by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, that the brand Rich Dad Poor Dad. There's two books I think everyone should go through. The rest, pick and choose. There might be some good ones that I don't even listen to because that guy went crazy. The first one is Rich Dad Poor Dad, kind of a mindset thing, kind of mindset shift on how we can make money. But the most important book by Robert Kiyosaki that everybody should go through. And if you can't take the time to read or listen to the book, at least find the YouTube videos on it. It's called The Cash Flow Quadrant. Understanding the four quadrants of how taxes are done. Complete game changer on when it comes to motivating you to become an investor. I like One Rental at a Time by Michael Zuber. I actually like it so much I narrated it for Audible, and I narrated his second book, 15 Conversations with Real Estate Millionaires. So I would recommend those. I'm trying to think of other books that I would recommend. I should show you my Audible account. I have over 600 books, and I listen to Audible all the time. And I go through a rotation, right? First, I don't believe in self-help books because you can't get self-help from someone else. That comes from you. But I do listen to finance books. I listen to physics books. I like the great lectures on physics. I'll listen to Dean Koontz, a bunch of fantasy books. So I'll cycle through. I'm not always just trying to educate myself, but those are the main ones that I think you should go through. Richest Man in Babylon, uh, The Alchemist, and Think and Grow Rich are the three that I think at some point everybody should like do a book report on. Freedom Works. Question for old guy RA. Is martinis, sparkling apple cider your favorite drink? I'll look for the answer. Oh, that's a hat. This is, yeah, it's a Stetson Skyline. Either 424 on Tuesday. Shouldn't you be fishing? There you go. You can't fish in Washington at this time. It's like dark already. Wealth building journey. Probably based on the level of suck compared to the amount of money someone can make. Todd, howdy. I bought a fixer up in Tacoma. Hopefully it's not in this Tacoma city limits, unless you're going to flip it. Spent the summer in the crawl space fixing the foundation. Plan on building an ADU next year, then repeating the process probably this time next year. Can you recommend any meetups or networks I should be participating in the area? I absolutely can. I'm a little sarcastic, but I'm a little serious. I wouldn't own in the city limits of Tacoma. If somebody gave me a property there, I'd sell it immediately and buy something else. And eventually that stuff might spread to Pierce County. The sickness that was Seattle spread to King County. And then it hit city of Tacoma. And there are like, I'm okay with anti-landlord laws. Those actually help us. But anti-investor laws, it's a deal breaker for me. Local meetup, Todd, around here, there is well, get in the Facebook groups, WARE, W-A-R-E. Get into Soundria. There's a couple of Facebook groups there you can look up. Oli, REI, it used to be named. I think they changed the name of that. I've got a group called Tacoma FI. We meet once a month. We usually meet around the Ruston, Tacoma area because I moved to Port Orchard. It's a little easier than traveling all the way to like Spanaway or something, but I can do that. They meet once a month. The group's fairly active. One of the things I really like is exchanging. Here's the handyman and contractors that I use. That helps a lot here. Building the ADU, you're gonna have to let me know how that goes. Oh, for that, hopefully, Todd, you are familiar with a YouTube channel called That ADU Guy. He lives in Oregon, but he's got some great advice on things to do with ADUs. PE turned RE. Howdy. What's going on? Curtis, how would you combine BRRRR and house hack? I'm doing it right now. So are you. That's a good question. So first, I would combine them once and never do it again because I'm never doing this again. The house hack, the hard part with the BRRRR house hack is house hacking benefits from owner-occupied lending. And BRRRR generally doesn't allow owner-occupied lending right off the bat. Sometimes a 203K loan where you can buy it and the money to rebuild it is also included. So there are options, right? But the typical BRRRR, hard money, buy it, rehab it, rent it out, refinance it, that refinance. The difference with a refinance with a house hack is you live there, so you aren't occupying it. You have the option for owner occupied lending, which means they'll do a higher loan to value amount. You get a better interest rate. So it's a good thing. The bad part, and so Mindy Jensen does this too. She does what's called live-in flips. Right, moves into a house, does a BRRRR, keeps it for 2 years, and then sells it. And I'm actually probably going to sell this place that I'm in. To be the first property I've ever sold. The idea is with my properties, I want them to perform better than my marriages, actually until death do us part. But the amount of money created by buying this place, tax free, because I'll have lived here in 2 years as of July. So next July will be 2 years. The IRS 121 rule will kick in. I can make up to $250,000 without paying a penny in taxes. I might sell it. We'll see. So it's going to be a BRRRR house hack flip, self-funded. So look into the 203K loan for doing a house hack that needs work like a BRRRR. What you're doing, you bought a duplex, you converted a part of it, you bought a triplex now. You're adding walls to make bedrooms to rent out to improve the income on the property. Uh, you'll once you hit a year, that's when you can look at the BRRRR house hack on your next thing. Not having a spouse, not having kids makes it a little easier than some people, right? Living in a place without a kitchen or a bathroom for 3 or 4 months and taking showers at the state park up the street, it's not everybody's cup of tea. But what are you willing to go through to get what you want? Stephanie, howdy. Clinton, howdy. You said in the past that you have looked in Arizona. What areas did you look at in Arizona? I don't think I want to own in Scottsdale. I looked at Chandler. So all around the Phoenix area. I don't know enough about the rest of the state. I didn't go all the way over to like Mesa or north. I was just in the Phoenix area. I like over by Glendale with the Air Force Base. I like that if you go a little bit further west, there's a chip town, like the infrastructure for a city is being built for a chip manufacturer. Uh, but I like that Chandler was mostly Class C. Glendale, Chandler. There was another part by Chandler, but not Scottsdale. Too divided on Class A to D in Scottsdale. But that Chandler area, I was pretty happy with that. I'm not too much of a fan of actual Phoenix itself. Gets too city for me, so I would be outside of Phoenix city limits if they have a city limits there. I'm not familiar with. I didn't look at it that way. I was looking at smaller areas. I did look in Phoenix for the CDL school when I was looking at putting the campus there, but that's not where the small multifamily that I was looking at was going to be. Tell me, Ola, howdy. Any advice on litigating a contractor? Same thing with any other litigation. The truth doesn't matter. What can you prove? What can you document? What can you prove? What have you recorded? What kind of supporting documents can you provide? Uh, and then, of course, remove all emotion from litigation. Just go. This is the contract we had. This is what we were supposed to do. This is what they were supposed to do. This is what I can prove. And remember that attorneys don't make money by winning your case unless they're doing a settlement type case. The attorneys make money in litigation cases where you're actually going to go to trial uh, by causing conflict. So I'd be careful of that. Stephanie, howdy. Should I change my roofs? They are getting old, but boy, they are expensive. 18,000 for one house, 26 for the other. Worried that I won't see my money back. Thank you for the advice. That's great question. I don't know that I've ever done a roof thinking, okay, this will add value to the property, so if I sold, I'd get my money back. I'm looking at protecting an asset long term. Multiple quotes, and don't go with anybody who shows up with an iPad. If they show up with an iPad, they're gonna talk about their guarantee, which is the same as everybody else's, no different. And they're gonna talk about their warranty and it's the BS meter. So let me see, my first roof that I did, this would have been probably 2018, I think was the first time I did a roof. I had quotes from 7,800 to 32,000. I got 5 quotes on that one. The next one I only got like 3 quotes because the guy that 78 was a local roofer and he got that I had several rentals and he was building future business. I think he was like 14,000 for a fourplex, right? So this is a very weird pitch, detailed roof. Uh, but like just over 8,000 by the time we were done. Because we went to the first roof, there was pictures sent and video sent of at a couple of places with rot too that was worked on. So it wasn't just strip, throw away, replace. But multiple quotes. All my quotes were from the Thumbtack app, right? Uh, so I want them at least tech savvy enough to be on Thumbtack, but I don't want them to show up with that stupid iPad or their big brochure of, I'm gonna get sued for this, but this is my opinion. I'm allowed to have an opinion. I don't do anybody who really promotes GAF roofing, GAF. No, they'll be twice as much as everybody else, and you don't get a better product. You get the same material. And I know if you work there, it's way better, your crews are better, but no, my opinion is not true. Uh, Local company, good reviews. I'm not doing it for my money back. I'm doing it to protect my asset. And when we buy a property, we calculate, I do, like 15% of gross rents is being set aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. And a lot of people say, well, what do you do once your reserves are full? Well, yeah, it goes towards the next investing. But I'm still calculating is that place is paying for its roof 15, 30 years from now, right? So if I got the one in 2018, yeah, I'm not going to think about that one for a while. So I've had three done now that I think about it. Yeah, so the house, the fourplex, and then a duplex, all with the same roofer. Every single time I got multiple quotes. So I changed my roofs. Age of the roof, have it inspected. Uh, and if you do have them replaced, not every time, but when you do have them replaced, make sure you let your insurance company know. Sometimes that can adjust your premium. It has changed my premium twice out of the three times. So let me know what you decide to do. Rob, Chris, Rob, that's a wow chat. There you go. Chris. Howdy, Dion. Howdy, Chris. Could you explain how you might use a HELOC and cash reserve combined to acquire cash flowing real estate? Thanks. So the goal when you make content is to not irritate people, right? And yes, I said some things against the left and I said some things against the right, and I lost subscribers in the last 6 months because I won't pretend to not be who I am. But your goal is not to irritate people, right? So I don't want to irritate you, Chris, when I go, I wouldn't, right? Because there's a caveat here. If you're asking this question, if you own several rentals and you're confident that when you buy it, you're going to get the return you expect, and you're thinking of everything, like you're going to have the inspection, you're going to have the sewer scoped, you know the rents in the area, you know enough to have your investing legs under you. Maybe then a HELOC makes sense, or maybe emptying out your retirement account makes sense. But on the first rental, second, maybe third, when you have all your mistakes in front of you, no matter how much content you come in, there's still going to be something new. Every time I've bought a property, there's been something I've never heard of before. Shared well between property, shared well with a commercial property, like just weird stuff that you just don't deal with. And then all of a sudden it's there and you got to figure it out. So if you do a HELOC right now, and let me use some very specific examples that a friend reached out. I have a property, they want to seller finance to me. The mortgage will be $8,000 and the rents that they're getting now are about $11,000. And he says, but to seller finance it, I've just got to come up with a down payment. So I'm going to get a HELOC for the down payment and I'll buy this property. Sounds great. His yield would have been whatever. And I said, okay, the 8,000 is for the seller finance mortgage. How much is the HELOC payment? Because you're adding debt to an existing asset, right? You're taking out the equity, which is what you're doing. You're adding debt to it. That has a payment involved too, which the down payment that he needed would have made his HELOC payment about 3,000 a month. So now it was 8,000 for the mortgage, 3,000 for the HELOC, 11,000, right? And the income was 11,000, meaning that's a loss. He's losing money because he's not setting anything aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. He's not prepared for all the things that can go wrong. I wouldn't take out the HELOC in that case. And he's got, I don't know, I think 9 rentals now, and he was still looking at it that way. So it's not like you just all of a sudden know how to do this. Are you confident in your ability to buy a property that'll have so much of a return that the money that you put into it, you'll get a return on? It'll cover the cost of the HELOC and the cost of the debt on the property. I don't think for your first, second, or third property that it's a good deal. I wouldn't do it. I still haven't done it. I still have never done a home equity line of credit, cash out refinance, or sold for a 1031. I'm talking about selling this place, and I'm definitely not doing another BRRRR. So you definitely want to have cash reserves. I wouldn't count a HELOC as a reserves. But after you have three or four properties and you find a deal, right? That's the main thing. The two things tell you when to buy, right? You're ready and you found a deal. Then maybe look at a HELOC to do it. Uh, but you're asking how might you do it? You have a deal that will generate enough cash flow to justify the HELOC. Two, you have the equity to get the HELOC. Three, you have the debt to income ratio or the rental income on your tax returns so that the lender will consider the rental income of the property you're buying in your debt to income ratio. And to acquire cash flowing real estate, there is a lot of studying that goes into learning what cash flowing real estate is, right? And I get the same question every single time. I'll do like a whiteboard. Here's my cash flow, or the truth about cash flow is like one of the last ones I did. And they go, this is what comes in, and this is what I'm spending, and this is what I'm setting aside. And every time I'll explain it on the whiteboard. I get people going, is that before or after expenses? And I'm like, I just did the whiteboard. I said, this is the expenses. This is future expenses, and broke it all down. Do you know how to run the math to figure out what the cash flow will be? Have you learned that skill? Because let me go through. This is the comparison to education. And then I'm going to ask people, tell me where you're at in the education. Be honest, put it in the chat. When you get to kindergarten, this is the level where you get the questions. And I judge the age, the education is based on the question they ask me. A kindergarten investor goes, how many doors do you have? That's my 5-year-old voice. How many doors do you have? Because they think that's what success is, right? You own rentals, they have doors. How many doors, how many units do you have, right? So if one person has 5 doors and one person has 50 doors, the kindergartner goes, wow, the 50 doors person's way more successful. Well, what if they're losing money on every door? Now the 5 door one sounds better, right? Or the 0 door sounds even better. So kindergarten then moves to elementary, and elementary goes, how much do you make per door? Well, it's a little bit smarter, more educated question, right? So now you know if it's negative or positive, right? You've learned that there are integers and it might be negative or positive. So how much do you make? This is 5th or 6th grade, elementary, whatever that is. How much do you make per door doesn't tell you if it's a good deal or not, because it doesn't tell you the yield, right? When you move to high school, you understand how to calculate yield, which is your annual profit divided by cost to acquire. Because when you're in elementary school, if you go, I make $100 a door, that sounds good. Well, what if you used a VA loan and got it for $0 and you rent it out and now you make $100 per door? Sounds good. What if you invested $1 billion and you make $100 a month off that property? That's not good, right? So that's where the elementary person goes to high school and realizes, okay, I need to calculate my yield. You learn what is average in your area and you want to beat it. So this is high school where you think, okay, I now understand the math of this. When you graduate high school and you have all those life choices to make, do you join the military? Do you go to college? Do you get married? Or are you smart? Do you get a job? Do you go to trade school, right? Once you graduate high school and you realize this is all the choices that happens with real estate. I understand my yield, right? I need to know how many doors I have. I need to know how much I'm making per door. I need to know what my return on investment is, right? I calculate my yield. But as I get out, I need to go, what are the physical aspects of this property that are going to help limit tenant turnover? What are the physical aspects of the area that's going to make my tenants want to stay? Am I going to have enough sources of tenants to fill it if they have a tenant turnover? Is the population growing or shrinking? Is there enough parking for the strategy I want to use? Like all of these things that come up that have nothing to do with math. As soon as you graduate, you realize math was this big. It's important. You don't graduate until you get a good enough grade in math to go on to make all those choices with your rental. So that's kind of the flow of education with how do you know if it's a good deal or not? So you asked, would I use a HELOC or figure out cash reserves? And then you said to acquire cash flowing real estate. Have you gone through all the whole education process to learn what cash flowing real estate is, right? It is a cash flowing deal that gets you a good return, including the debt on the HELOC, and it matches all those other things that make it a good deal. Long answer. Hope it helps. And I think we're past the paddleboarding time, unless we get good weather. Let me know. Wealth building journey. Stephanie Badiou. Bridue. Have you gotten at least 3 quotes for your roof? There you go, Stephanie. Yes, I did. Wealth builder, good. And did you make sure that they weren't the big name brand ones? Rob, 45-minute commute prior to COVID. Been home since. There you go. Thank you, Chester, for putting those in the chat. Luke, howdy. Do you recommend me scale to 10 properties while working and then play with equity to grow, or do it all at the same time? Should I keep it simple or scale, scale, scale? By the way, I don't think we can start without a hider. No, we're supposed to wait until Ryan shows up. That is a thing, and I support that. This is a great question, and there isn't a right answer. I could tell you what I did, and I know people who are maybe more successful that did it in a different way. When you go to grow your portfolio, it sounds like you understand that you can. What I did was recycle cash flow, and what my friends like Michael Zuber, Millennial Mike, Lumberjack Landlord are doing is recycling capital to grow a bigger portfolio. You said, let me get to 10 and then 10 properties while working and then play with equity to grow, right? I don't have 10 properties. I don't want 10 properties. I don't even want the ones I have. I'm probably going to sell 1 or 2 in the next couple of years. So what's your goal? Do you just want a bunch of properties? And sure, you're going to scale with recycling capital, but it'll take you 15 or 20 years to reach financial freedom. Instead of I wanted to do it in 10 years or less, I wanted a couple $100,000 in cash flow to walk away from my job. So 8 properties, 18 units, 235,000 in profit last year after, yes, now I'll clarify for everybody that needs a whiteboard. This is after taxes, after all expenses, after the mortgages, and after setting aside 15% for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. I spend about 50,000 a year because I house hack, drive a paid off vehicle. So having 4+ times that coming in, I'm able to retire. So what's your goal? Is it you want 20,000 a month cash flow, kind of like I have? You don't need 10 properties. Unless you invest in a really low cost of living area, like Gary, Indiana, right? You're going to need more properties to get the same cash flow. I invest in Washington because it's expensive. Like that's one of the reasons why I prefer this, because it takes less property to get more cash flow. So if you want to scale to 10 and then use the cash flow to grow, which is, I guess, technically what I'm doing. I just didn't go for 10. I went for financial freedom and then retired. And now, yeah, the money's building up. I'll probably buy another couple properties in the next years as I find a good deal. I might sell 1 or 2, like the one that I'm in, just because it made so much money. I'm probably going to sell it. Uh, but if you want to scale, 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 Michael Zuber and Lumberjack Landlord both recycle capital and have way over 100 units each. Now, file this away. I have 8 properties, 18 rental units. Zuber has like 187 rentals. Matt has over 140. And no kidding, I can say this with true honesty. I would not trade portfolios with them. If my tenants dialed in, if my properties dialed in, it takes less than 2 hours a month to manage my properties. I have absolute financial freedom. I don't need more. If your goal is a massive portfolio, their way is way better. Their strategy is better. Their end result is better. My goal was the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of units. What's your goal? Maybe a combination of both. Rob, would you ever buy in 29, 29 Palms? Uh, I never want to say those words again out loud, but yes, I would buy there if I was living, like if I got a health concern and said you need to move to the desert, I'd buy in 29 Palms. That's not in LA County. You got the Marine Corps base there, right? It's one of the larger live fire bases on the West Coast. It's literally the devil's armpit of California. So I don't want to go there, own there. But if you live in that area, sure, absolutely. I don't see a problem with that. When I was stationed at JBL, 29 Palms, I lived in Yucca Valley. I'd rather own in Yucca Valley. Yucca Valley is way nicer. What's out there? Joshua Tree is where some people do a lot of tiny home stuff. I didn't like Joshua Tree. I like Yucca Valley. Chester, I am an Audible addict. Me too. And I don't think I have them in here, but I was going to show the earbuds I use. Angel R. 4 agreements in a good book? Four Agreements is a good book. I've never heard of it. I'll have to check it out. Four Agreements. Thank you for the recommendation. Freedom Works, old guy REI. I spent my youth swimming and fishing in Pinto Lake. You live in the middle of paradise. Nice. Yeah, I wouldn't say that about the Pacific Northwest. The thing I like about it up here is nothing's trying to unalive us, but the scuba's not that good. Visibility is terrible. Water's cold. Yeah. Luke, howdy. Where did you get your lease from in your state? Anyway, I can get it for free and then add some stuff to it. Well, it depends on what state you are in. I don't know that I would want my lease. I got my lease from a website that no longer has the lease available. Each state might have. I know Washington State used to have this website. Part of the state website was landlord tenant resource page. And on that, there was a lease, which I took down. I then, based on recommendation from my brother, who every now and then does something right, took that lease to the attorney that I've retained for evictions. And I said, this is the lease I want to use. If we go through an eviction, you're the one that has to do it. Is there any verbiage that you would want added to this lease that will make your job easier? They added a paragraph on something. I forget what it was. Might have added two paragraphs. So if you do get a lease, try to get it for the state you're in and have an attorney look at it. That you are probably ever going to go through an eviction, it'll be with that attorney to see what they want to add. And if you email me, sometimes I'll send you a lease, but I am having computer issues and I use Mac, and sometimes it doesn't transfer very well to people. But they are very state specific. Todd, howdy. I'm okay with Tacoma policies, have a contact in the planning department, and am optimistic about their zoning laws. I have that ADU guy. There you go. Good. Awesome. Nice. Is your contact, what is his name? I didn't keep the name straight. My friend was in the Pierce County Planning Works and he retired. But he's also one of the reasons why I went known in that city of Tacoma. Wealth building journey, Derek, that ADU guy. Thank you. Shane, howdy. Are efficiency apartments with a full bath and kitchen a good investment? So, could be specific to your area, could be specific to your strategy, right? And calculate the yield. What can you rent it for? What will the cost to acquire it be? When I look at efficiency, now you said apartments. Does that mean it's like townhome style? I don't like that. I want to own the buildings. Like Millennial Mike has in Chicago, there's a duplex that was subdivided and he owns one side and somebody else owns the other. It's working great for him. That's not something I want to do. I'm in Washington where it's just not common. You don't really see that very often. I want to own, like if I have to do the roof, I want to do the whole roof. I don't have to deal with whatever the neighbor's thinking. So if it's like a tiny home where it just doesn't have any other rooms, maybe. Apartment, I wouldn't own anything in an HOA. So not my goal to own in an HOA. Efficiency rates seem to be with Section 8 about the same for a one-bedroom rate. They don't seem to be too different. So it could be a good investment. Calculate the yield and then think, will it match your strategy? One of the benefits to that is I like to legally discriminate against families with kids. I don't want to rent to kids. They've been almost all but one time that the damages at my property has been from kids and a contractor one time. But so I specifically don't want to own properties in good school districts. Do I rent to families with kids? Yes, I've got a couple, meaning a couple that have kids. And whenever I do work, because there's major work to do in the bathroom, I will rip out a shower or rip out the tub and put in only a walk-in shower. Less likely to get kids. If you have an efficiency apartment, you're less likely to get families, probably going to have less damage. So if you're around a college, probably great. If you're on a retirement area, it's probably great, right? Know what is normal in your region. They can absolutely be a good investment. Like Zuber says, when people ask him, do you want a house, a duplex, a fourplex, or apartments? And he goes, which one has the best yield? That's the deal I'm going for. So they can be good. Depends on if you find a good one. Joy Toy, any tips on finding a good handyman and a backup? I'm thinking about firing my current property manager company and doing it myself, but I need to have the handyman system in place. I totally agree. My brother just went through the same thing. He fired his property manager and I gave him my handyman contact for different things. So are you in a local REI meetup where you can get face-to-face recommendations for handyman and contractors from the people that go there? That's one route. What I did to build mine is go to the Thumbtack app and hire the contractors for different things. Right? I've had drywall work done, some plumbing work done, some electric work done. In those interactions, I watch for how do they interact with the tenant? How do they communicate with me? How are their prices, of course, compared to others? And then in that conversation, well, what do you like to do? What do you not like to do? It's one of my favorite questions. I don't go, what do you focus on? I go, what do you not like to do? I've got a guy who's great at LVP, doesn't do carpet. All right. So I don't have him do the carpet on the stairs. He'll put the LVP and I'll have somebody else put the carpet on the stairs. Once you've hired him from Thumbtack, I've had good experiences with Thumbtack because you get to read reviews and you get to leave a review and they know that you're going to leave a review. And then you develop relationships with me with at least four handymen or contractors. And I look for some that are licensed plumbers, some that are licensed electricians, but they do other things too, right? They're trying to keep themselves busy or their subs busy. And then once you have three or four of those lined up, you're good to go to manage by yourself. I think the worst time of my self-managing was when I was down to one handyman that I used, and he was not reliable. So I had to build that list back up. For a while, I had like two or three, and then two of them retired. One of them came through my school, got a CDL, became a driver, and then moved to another state. And so he was good, but don't have him anymore. So I built out, now I've got a couple of contractors. And here's what's really important to me, AJ, and how I keep my contractors, because like an example, I like to go last year, a couple months in Portugal. The year before that was a couple months in Florida. This year I'm going to Thailand. Next year I'm going to Scotland, and then I'm going back to Thailand. And I don't want to be here to manage my properties, right? I wouldn't, if I did it at a distance, I'd have a property manager. But since I'm here and then traveling, I like to hire these contractors for small things and do all those things I talked about. How do they interact with the tenant? How do they communicate with me? How do their prices compare? Is their work any good? But then I hire them for easy jobs. I had a plumber the other day, let's say the other day, a month ago-ish, to go swap out a toilet. It's two bolts and a water connection, right? It's an easy job. I could totally go do that, save myself, whatever, a couple $100 or something. But hire them for the easy job, then they're more likely to answer the phone at 10 o'clock on a Friday night when you get a call from your tenant saying, we got no water pressure. And there's this weird alarm thing going off with the septic system. Did you know septic systems have alarms? They answer the phone because they know they've been hired for simple jobs. They got a tip. They were paid quickly, right? As soon as the work was done, they were Venmoed or Zelle or whatever format that you use to pay them. Build that relationship. And I tell them, look, I'm going to hire you for easy jobs. So you're more likely to do the harder jobs. I'm not just going to hire you when it's something I don't want to do myself. Develop those relationships. And then whenever you work with an agent, a lender, or handyman, tips are nice, right? I'm sure they appreciate it. The workers doing the work definitely appreciate the tips. But the people who own the business, they appreciate referrals. It's one of the first things I've done. If you live in Pierce or Thurston County, you know that I've got can never figure out the guy's name. It's either Daniel or Oscar, because him and his dad, they've switched their names every time they talk to me. And then I've got Philip, and I've got these handymen and contractors that I'll just connect with people and say, look, this is what they've done for me. This is what I know they can do. I don't know the other stuff. You can find that out and then let me know. The more referrals you get to them, the more they know business or work came from knowing you, the more likely they are to work with you in the future. And then my chat moved. Wealth building journey. AJ Toy, did you connect with fellow investors in your local market? There you go. Who do they recommend? Name that keeps coming up. Good. Good recommendation. JNYC, there's some very sketchy areas of Scottsdale. There absolutely are. Sean, howdy. In a recent video, you mentioned 3 red flag questions from renters. Question number 2 was if they ask if you manage the home apartment yourself or if you are a rental company. How do you respond to the question? I self-manage. I'm honest and transparent, but they have a red flag against them. How how does that red flag contribute to everything else about them? Right now, I'm looking at their credit score, their eviction history, the way they communicate with me, how I think they're going to interact with my tenants, and now they've got a red flag. So if they were kind of borderline, it like moves the meter, right? So but just answer transparently. I self-manage. I do add For big questions, though, sometimes I check with my partners on, answering questions. So still self-manage, but that way I don't have to be the bad guy when I say no to some things. Everyone always texts me during a live to Fiji. Old guy, right? Freedom works right now. Contractors stink. Old guy, right? Yes, they do. Especially ones that fly across 3 states for the first time in their life to help you put in a tile in your shower with you. Rob, what woman told you that you're allowed to have an opinion? All of my ex's attorneys told me I was allowed to have an opinion. I represented myself. Uh, there's only one correct answer. None. There you go. Dan, question. Who do you use for insurance coverage on your rentals? Do you have any particular coverage or limits? Good question. So how do I handle insurance on my properties? I call for quotes myself, right? I'll call different places, brokerages, and I stay away from Farmers, Allstate. Well, there's like 3 other main names. Like if you Google homeowners insurance, the first 5 that show up, skip those, write them down, don't ever use them. Uh, they're 5 times what everybody else is. I personally ended up with a Geico broker, and most of my properties went through Stillwater Insurance. There might be a couple with Travelers or some other ones, but through my broker, even though I contacted other places for quotes to make sure I was getting the right coverage for the right premium. I do $300,000 injury or slip fall coverage, full replacement, because you're offered cover your mortgage or full replacement of the building. I do full replacement, and I make sure my insurance premiums grow with how much cost to replace would be, because I want to be made whole, not just the lender. If I have an insurance complete burn down, I raise the deductible as high as possible. Sometimes it was 5,000, most times it's 10,000, right? Because I don't want to use insurance unless it's a major claim and I've got the reserves for it. Higher deductible keeps the premiums lower. So I'm trying to control costs. As an investor, I've never had an insurance claim. I had one homeowner's insurance claim in 2006 before I was an investor, but unless it burns to the ground or somebody falls and breaks their actual neck, I'm not going to do insurance claim. Because if you do, nobody else will insure you for 5 years, and the insurance company that does insure you could cancel, and you might get stuck with what's called lender-placed insurance, which only covers them, doesn't make you whole, and costs way more than what insurance will cost. Once I got to 4 properties, I added an umbrella policy. Probably could have done this at 3 properties. Now it's like $650 a year for $2 million in coverage. So if anything ever goes, so there's a full replacement value on the properties, but the injury goes up to 300. If any of those claims ever go above that, then the umbrella policy kicks in. So that's how I handle insurance. Wealth building during politics is a necessary evil that I have to participate in twice every 4 years. Gubernatorial and presidential elections. Now, there you go. My problem, here's my problem. This is why my channel will never be big. And I need the water that makes the eyes water to even say this. There are things I can't stand about people on the left. And there are things I can't stand about people on the right. I can piss off both sides. That's why my channel will never be big. Because I won't change who I am. I will just have problems with both sides. And ironically, whenever I say what I have a problem with the left, they just assume, oh, you must be all right. And if I have a problem with the right, then, oh, you must be a crazy liberal, right? No matter what I say, someone's unhappy. People say, well, I'm a centrist. No, these are things that actually bother me that each side does. AJ Toy. The wealth building journey. I'm struggling with 50-hour week at work, community involvement and family. So I have been doing the landlording thing solo. I just found out this channel this week. Well, it's nice to meet you, AJ Choi. I'll put my email in the chat. I answer questions. I do these lives every Tuesday at 4. And then sometimes if you email me a question, and I'll probably email you an answer back, but sometimes I'll make a standalone video on Thursdays and Saturdays. I do like 10 to 20 minute short ones where I don't answer questions in the video, but I answer a question for the video. My goal is to help people reach financial freedom. make work optional. Sometimes I talk a lot about real estate, but it could be you invest in stocks. It could be you invest in crypto. It's how to make more than you spend and how to save and invest the difference, and then how to find out what your freedom number is and how to find out what retirement is like and when you should do it. I mean, I didn't understand money at all until I was like, I didn't even start thinking about it till I was 40. So it's not like I just have always been good with money. I was like, at 40, I was, and I'll keep this brief because I've said it in so many videos, a single parent with three kids, just got laid off from law enforcement, found out about $89,000 in bad debt in my name I didn't know existed until the divorce. That's what I was at 40. I wouldn't take any advice from that guy. But it took 12 years of investing. I retired at 52 in 2022. So I've been retired for 2 years now. And my goal is to share it in that decade. What did I do? What did I change about the way I look at money? And I definitely don't know everything. And you might have an investing strategy that I don't do, but in my circle of friends, right? I've got Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time that has a ton of other investors that come in with all different strategies, from stocks to real estate to multifamily. I've got the lumberjack landlord who self-manages a large portfolio, does his own, runs his crews for rehabs. I've got Millennial Mike, who's a first responder. I used to be a cop. He's a cop. He invests out of state. So if there's a strategy you're doing that I don't do and I don't know the answer, I'll know who to send you to. Dan, if for some reason homes could only be purchased with cash, no mortgage, is there a better investment than rentals you could get into? So I like the way you structure the question, because the things I like about real estate is, one, there's tax benefits, right? You get to depreciate the property. So you for a long time don't pay taxes on your income. But the superpower is leverage, right? I'm gaining appreciation on multiples of what I invested. I'm getting to depreciate multiples of what I invested. So I've never paid a penny in rental income tax. Like all of those benefits, I'm getting the tenants to pay off the debt, inflation-based debt destruction. Thank you, Hartman, for Jason Hartman, for saying that, because that's a really powerful thing. It's easier to pay off debt in the future. So all of those things, that's why I invest in real estate. If it had to be purchased with cash, is there an investing strategy that I would have preferred? That's a tricky question. I'm not a stocks guy. Like I watch Joe Kuhn all the time, which is weird. Everybody always, why do you watch him? You don't invest in stocks. I'm like, well, he retired at 54 and I had no clue what that was going to be like. So that's what I wanted to watch him for. And then he puts it in relatable terms and talks about things that I didn't know to expect. So, but I don't invest in stocks. I don't think I would invest in crypto. I think if I couldn't own real estate, I would then be forced to be an entrepreneur. I would have started and grown a business and stayed on it and focused with it. And I have two businesses. One got closed down because my ex emptied the taxes and wages account. I had to shut the business down, and then I took 6 months to cover that. And the other one shut down because I wasn't in the day to day. Like I ran a CDL school for someone else and it did good. And I started a trucking company because I had access to new drivers, but I didn't run the day to day, so it failed. I would run a business if it wasn't for real estate. Because this is what's weird. And this is what, when somebody's brand new, like AJ Toy, I want you to understand, I am not an entrepreneur. Right. It's a hard concept. You go, oh, you own rental, so you don't have a job. You never have to work again. This is great. You must be an entrepreneur. No, I'm an investor. I put my money to work so I don't have to. An entrepreneur owns their job. They say, I don't want to work 40 hours a week. So now you work 90. And they say, I don't want to have a boss. So now everybody who has a Yelp account is your boss. Like I'm not that entrepreneur person. I put my money to work so I never have to. If it was taken away, I still wouldn't be a stocks guy. I wouldn't be a retirement account guy. I would be an entrepreneur. Or like my dad, I'd work till I'm 75 and die on a job site, which is when I got the hat, because he wore one his entire life. And I figured, nah, it's my turn now. Rode horses my whole life, never wore hats, always hated the whole cowboy thing because we're like, it's not the 1800s. And then I realized it's my connection to him. Yeah, I'm the dork that rode a horse to school in the seventh and eighth grade. Let me tell you, that doesn't make your social life great when you do that. Old guy area, you graduated. Good job. And you've graduated more than me. So AJ Toy, if you're looking for somebody, Old Guy REI has a website, has a YouTube channel. He lives in California, but he invests in several different markets to own rentals. So he's got a strategy that I don't do. One to check out. Rob, I thought Mike was recycling girlfriends. I would say that, except no kidding. He seems to only have one now. And I don't know what to do with that. My little monkey brain can't process him doing that. All-nighter hider. Well, my son and I are here just taking the ear candy as we worked. We're actually leaving the job now. Awesome. Be safe. And we're going to end this in about 15 minutes, probably, because I got to get to the course call at 6 o'clock. Hider, go fishing. Catfish are waiting. Oh, also, AJ Toy, if you're brand new to the channel, there's a free course. I know I mentioned it earlier. I'm going to mention it again. DionTalk.com is free. My tenants ask me to raise the rent. That's what makes it easier to find cash flowing deals on the MLS. And when I agree, they're happy. Happy tenants don't trash your property, and happy tenants don't leave. I had to go fishing. The catfish are waiting. I could totally see Ryan catfishing somebody online. Won't you comment? Well, this comment post, it did. Freedom Works. Okay, I'm currently in Monticello, Mississippi. Sounds like a real place, but I live in Atlanta, Georgia. There you go. Freedom Works. I sold 2 businesses in Salinas and 1 business in Silicon Valley. Oscar is the dad, Daniel is the son, I believe. And I thought it was the other way. Could have swore it was the other way because it's Daniel's drywall, and he said Daniel's my dad. That's how I was introduced to him. They do good work. They have good prices. So that's what I care about. Punchline to many great jokes is 29 Palms. I totally agree. James, howdy. You mentioned you find your properties on the MLS. On average, how much does it cost you to get your average property off the MLS rental ready for a tenant? I buy them preferred with the tenant in place. I've only bought one place that needed work, and I'm never doing that again. I'd say 2 grand. I purchased one property. I purchased it knowing it needed a roof. So that's the one where I had to hire a roofer to go put on. All the others were purchased minimal work. Tenant in place. My very first duplex, yeah, the side I moved into, it needed a bunch of drywall work, but everything else worked. All the plumbing, all the electric, driveway, garage, everything was good. So I buy rent ready or already occupied properties from the MLS. And then I use the binder strategy to get the rents where I want them. I did purchase this one as a BRRRR, and I randomly created out of thin air, probably $300,000 in profit, maybe like 280 after every expense that I'm going to have to sell it. It took a year. And and that's not including the cash flow that I've got since the work's been done, because the other sides of this duplex, the other unit in this duplex is rented out. But I moved here for the view, and I can walk down to the Seattle Ferry and all of those things. But I'm never doing this again. Matt and Mike actually in a video, the Lumberjack Landlord and Zuber actually did the math on how much time I spent on this BRRRR. It was about, I was making $3,750 per hour that I did this. And I will never do it again. It's not worth it. This is stupid. Because I lost months managing a project when I could have been scuba diving in Thailand. No. Build phase? Sure. I gave up vacations for 8 years. Would do this all day long. But in retirement, there is no amount of money. I mean, it can start with a B, billions. There is no more freedom than financial freedom. And man, that breaks their brain when we have that conversation. Brian, howdy. I am struggling to find deals that cash flow. I'm interested, but in seeing others evaluated real estate deals. Is that something your member group does? That's what we do. That's what the membership does. Because here's the thing, Brian, and we're probably going to be wrapping this up soon. YouTube has an algorithm that goes, okay, so you have a thumbnail and a title. It's the first thing you see when you see the video, right? This one you saw a little girl eating porridge. You're like, why'd you click on that? I don't know. We're all weird. I know I'm weird. I made the picture. So, or use the picture, whatever. Whoever clicks through, it's called a click-through rate. right? So the more people that click through, the more people it shares the video with, right? Normally there's like 100 people here during a live. There's like 60. So that thumbnail wasn't very active. It wasn't very effective. And then how long somebody watches tells YouTube to share this with more people. So the more people that stay longer, the more the channel performs, right? If you clicked on this video and it was me in Zoom with a bunch of people looking at an email and then looking at a deal and going, okay, let's run the math and just having a conversation. How do we calculate the rents? Okay, how do we calculate the cost to acquire? What's my down payment? What's my cost to make rent ready? All of these things. And then we talk about the area and we talk about the property. People wouldn't stay. The click out rate would be so much, my channel would die. So I make that members only. So the people who know, like I'm a member of this channel, to do this super boring, open an email, look at all the things about the property, look at everything about the area, run the math to learn that skill. That's who it's for. That's what those calls are for. Frameworks. He who can walk away wins. There you go. All right, Jared, this W thing is interfering with my real estate investing. Totally. FreedomWorks question. You started your own trucking company. You had your own authority. I did. Yep. I started two. The first one was a furniture delivery company before I worked at the CDL school. And again, that's the one where the wages and taxes accounts got emptied because yay, marriage. And that's actually the best part of that marriage. So then the second one, when I was working at the CDL school, I started technically a flatbed company, but it was local. And it was mostly LTL. And since I didn't run the day to day and I was trying to do by the hour and I was learning, so there was just this transition happening from dispatchers to apps, right? Like Trucking Path and a couple of others where you could broker your own loads and you were paying 8% instead of 35. I didn't run the day to day and it wasn't profitable, so I shut it down. So again, not an entrepreneur. I'm an investor. I lost 200 grand. I would own another at least two duplexes if I didn't try that stupid trucking company. But based on the information I had at the time, it was the best decision to do. So there we go. Cool. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Tony. Uh, I hope these questions make your investing journey easier, better, faster, safer, funner. Because when I see YouTube and I see all of the Crash Bro videos, I understand that the dumbing continues. Have a week full of amazing, unless you're in the course. I will see you in about a half an hour.